Hey everyone. Hello from India. I'm actually coming to you from a different part of the world this time. But yeah, usually you're used to seeing Betty and I talking about all things coaching and asking questions to the audience and things. But I like to joke that I started my business so that I could hang out with my friends. And I really wanted to do that this time. So we have Elijah and Kareen joining us today because you know, sometimes you just want to talk with your friends and share the things that coaches talk about. And when we watched Inside Out 2, we thought it would be really fun to talk about what do coaches think about movies like this and what's our take on it. So today that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to pass it on to Betty just to set the container and then we'll get started.
Yeah, and for those of you who are new to this space, we try to do this at the top of every single one. Just two very quick agreements in terms of like how we want to hold the space for you all and how we hope you all get to use the space as well. The first one is just to stay curious, right? So normally we're talking about bigger, more complex topics. Today, I don't know, Inside Out can get pretty complex as well. So we'll see where this goes also. But the thing we want to share with everyone is there's no right or wrong perspective in terms of what we're sharing. Like we're four people with four different opinions. And for all of you guys watching today, you are also bringing a different perspective as well. So we want to hold space for that and just to stay open and stay curious. And I think today, maybe a slight twist is also stay vulnerable. And that's kind of what I mean by stay open today. So often, those of you who have worked with coaches or considering working with coaches, you want to have a space where you can really open up. And you're really putting a lot of trust in your coach. So this is actually a fun way for you to get your coaches into a vulnerable seat. So four of us are going to share a bit more openly about, yes, it's through fun lens of Inside Out, but also what does that bring up for us as emotions and as coaches also. So let's do quickly going around, just introducing some of the newer faces onto the channel for us, although these are all folks you've seen before with us also. Um, Folks who are new to me, my name is Betty Chan. I am an authenticity life coach. I work with code switchers, first generation folks who are, yeah, just feeling like they have to show up as different personas in different parts of their life. And I think when we do that for a long time, we start to lose a sense of who what a true self is. And a lot of my work as an authenticity coach is helping us kind of rebuild those bridges within ourselves so that we can show up as who we are confidently and effortlessly as well. And also with us today is Elijah.
Hey everyone, my name is Elijah Say. I'm a millennial leadership coach. I work with leaders that are ready to find their friction to make leadership more fun and more at ease. I believe that oftentimes when we start our journey of leadership, the scary stuff is the stuff that we just don't like to talk about. It's the stuff that's vulnerable, the imposter syndrome, the things that give us self doubt. And I enjoy working with those that want to make a really, really strong impact right out the gate. So that's me.
All right. And we also have Kareen with us.
Hi, everybody. My name is Corina Paris. I'm an integral coach, and I work with high achieving folks who have experienced some sort of interruption in their lives. They've realized that they've been doing the rat race for far too long and that they're seeking for something deeper, more meaningful. They're wanting to bring more joy and authenticity into their lives. And so I love working with folks who, similar to Betty, are first generation, whether it's first generation Americans, first generation college grads, first generation working in corporate, first generation job owners, business owners. And I find that it's really important to integrate all parts of ourselves, our bodies, our hearts, and our souls and our minds. And so that brings me great joy. And I'm happy to be here with my friends and all of you who dialed in.
Wonderful. And last but not least, Ashmi.
Hello again. I'm Ashmi Patel, and I'm a life coach for late diagnosed and undiagnosed ADHD women. So I myself was diagnosed early 30s and completely flipped the script on everything I thought about myself and my life. And I really like to help women get rid of the shame that comes from living with ADHD for decades and not knowing it. And uh, just to describe myself, I like to say I'm wildly curious a deep feeler, and a constant daydreamer. And I feel like that kind of sums up my vibe altogether. And yeah, I also like to talk about being a child of immigrants and figuring out what it feels like living in between two cultures that are very different and sometimes opposing. And today, I also just like wanted to add that this was really exciting for all of us to do together because it shows our approach to coaching as well. We we're not all like super buttoned up coaches. We like to be really authentic and bring fun into something that can be so scary and vulnerable, which is why we're really excited to do this. And so to get us started, I did want to, I don't know, just ask the group, speaking of Inside Out 2 and the switchboard, who's at your switchboard either today or just recently, who's been at the front of the switchboard lately?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I did not gasp because I have an answer. I still need time to think about my switchboard, but spoiler alerts. I realize for any folks who hasn't watched Inside Out 2, we will definitely be spoiling some stuff on this episode. So fair warning for that. Now back to my switchboard. But if anyone has one, definitely go first.
I could say mine. So at my switchboard currently, I would say it would probably be Joy at my switchboard currently. And I say that because I always operate within at least 10% Delulu as well. So I'm fully understanding the other side of Joy and saying it's like, we can do this. We're fine. We're fine. We might not be fine. But Joy was still trying to manage the switchboard, knowing that Joy wasn't fine. And I would say oftentimes that is my go-to, is to say it's like, we're okay until I fully convince myself I'm not. And then trying to work. I was like, okay, now I got to work from there. Let's see what happens. But oftentimes Joy is there, and helping me sort through what I'm feeling after the fact. I would say like I originally want to laugh. I originally want to assume positive intent from people. I originally usually my brain goes to, they couldn't admit that because that wouldn't be like, someone wouldn't do that. Like, like I go there in my brain. And so, how Joy was like tossing like the thoughts out like that weren't great. I know my brain does. I send it over there. And Joy likes to do that sometimes. So I have to let Joy know, like, hey, you got to chill out sometimes on that, because you also have to acknowledge for your emotions for what they are and to be accepting of that. So that's who's at the switchboard right now.
All right. Joy throwing out some thoughts to the back of the brain. Yeah. All right. Oh, actually hearing that, you're helping me realize that I feel like I couldn't name them, because what's that scene where they're like fighting, like who's touching the switchboard, and now it's orange and now it's blue and now it's whatever. So like, I feel like that's happening at my switchboard right now. I would say it depends on what area of my life we're looking at, right? Like professionally, I'm feeling a lot of joy, loving the work that I do. It's not something I've always experienced throughout my life. Like things I'm good at but not good for me was kind of the flavor I've always worked at professionally, and finally finding work that I'm good at and is good for me is a very different place in my life as well. But I'm hanging out with sadness and anger hardcore when it comes to, I just got out of therapy yesterday. So like on the personal side of things, yes, they are like tapping it out and doing DJ moves on the switchboard also. And I would just say, with the world going on and everything's happening, like anxiety is right smack in the middle also. That's who's at my switchboard. Yeah.
I like that image of the DJ set. That was really cool. I was at that rave with you, Betty.
The sad and angry one.
Yeah. Let's see. What's that? Who's on my DJ set? I would also, I'm right there with you in terms of anger. I say that with a smile, which kind of
One with
So
gritted teeth.
I know. So I guess it's anger and joy. Yeah, anger and joy really feels present right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know they don't seem like they hang out much, but I think in my world, and I'm sure in other people's worlds, they do. Um, there's this scene in Inside Out. I think it was in the first one where Riley is like, she's playing hockey, and anger is there and like fueling her up, and she's like getting out there, and I would say like that part of anger is present, like this fire is under my butt, and wanting to push things forward. There's also this like activist spirit that's always been part of me that I think is presented in anger, like wanting to fight for some sort of justice, and other times it's a little too self-righteous. Vulnerability moment. So I'll call myself out on that. Joy is also present too, because sometimes I think when I go deep into the anger, I think, you know, I get into this nihilist perspective, and I realize like that's not going anywhere. Like that's not going to actually move me forward. And so I think the joy, that also kind of looks a little delulu, is there to be like, you know what, things are really bad right now. Things are not okay, but like we've got this. Like we're here. We're bringing this to the attention of ourselves for a reason. So let's go. Let's like rally the troops. Let's push this forward. Let's also enjoy the simplicity of life in the midst of all of this. So I'd say joy and anger are at the switchboard for me right now.
I love that none of us said just one, because my whole thing was like, the thing about the movie that I wish was different was that there's always one like main controller at the switchboard, because that makes it seem like we can only feel one thing at the same time. But I don't like. I'm usually feeling many things all at once. But yeah, a new character that shows up in Inside Out too, a new emotion, is anxiety, and I feel like anxiety is definitely at the like leading the switchboard, controlling for me right now, but in a way of like trying to pull in all the other emotions in a like controlling way, if that makes sense. Like
Say more.
Anxiety is at my switchboard trying to boss all the other emotions around. Essentially, that's what's happening.
She's not being diplomatic about it.
Yeah, like instead of just trying to let things be, she's trying to control the emotions in and also, Betty, I'm glad she gave a spoiler alert, because nostalgia like kind of shows up in this movie, and so I'm gonna count it. And nostalgia is definitely at my switchboard right now. And yeah, I think one of the, if y'all are okay for me to like skip ahead to one of my favorite parts of the movie, because it does have to do with the emotions at my switchboard, was when anxiety essentially like gives Riley a panic attack, and so then they're like focused on anxiety, and she's like, oh, I was just trying to protect her. And to me, in that part of the movie, like I got really emotional. I was just like, yeah, that is exactly the role that anxiety has played. And I think for a lot of neurodivergent folks, especially undiagnosed, that's where our anxiety comes from. Like it's a protection mechanism to try and not be the way people are telling us not to be. And yeah, I just really liked that part of the movie, and I thought it was really poignant way of talking about anxiety in like a really honest and not negative way, because I think a lot of times we see anxiety as this thing that's just really negative, but it really is just a protection mechanism that we gather through our lives through different experiences, and I liked that they gave space for that.
I hear that like it can feel controlling, because anxiety in general is just very, very like high volume protection, right? It's like really intense. But I would say joy's doing the same thing, right? She's tossing memories out the back. Sadness is doing the same thing. Anger's, they're all, I love that you brought it up. Like their purpose is to protect us. from things that might happen to us, that we're worried might happen to us. So they just all take turns doing that job.
I agree with you there, and that perspective of that they're there to help us, they're there to support us, and there's also times where they're like confused helpers. Like there was times where I saw anxiety. I'm like, she had all her spreadsheets out, and I was like, I can really relate to that. She's like, she's got all the scenarios, and I'm like, yeah, let's get it. And then, she's planning for scenarios that have yet to exist and may never happen. And then you've got, I don't want to put too much heat on anxiety. I'm trying to think of another emotion. Oh, ennui. Ennui is a little too cool for school. And I can see how that's important, in certain situations, and there's times that it kind of created like a lot of like lethargy, maybe a little bit of inertia.
Or
And so I think that's
disconnection, right? Like when someone's asking Riley how she's doing, she's like, I'm fine.
Yeah, whatever. And that's where it gets a little confused, because then we're not really feeling like, oh, like Riley, like you do want to geek out, like come on, show a little bit of yourself. And then her confused helper was like, let's play around with this part of the switchboard. Let's just experiment. Sometimes I see my emotions doing that a lot, where I'm like, oh, anger's at the switchboard right now, but really like I just want to be a little bit more like soft and be a little sad and just say like, I miss you. And I'm not mad at you. I just miss you. And sometimes that's a little hard to kind of admit.
Or even to like create that distinction for ourselves to even notice that that's the thing we want to say. Definitely. Well, Ashmi, you shared your favorite moment in the movie, and I'm kind of curious, what are other folks? What's your favorite moment? It's going to be really hard to pick one.
It is.
So I've got
just one. Right when the question leaves my mouth, I'm like, I'm going to hate answering this one.
Well, we don't have to choose one, right? We can choose one.
We don't have to choose one.
I've got one. I'm revealing a lot. This is like a tell-all. It's the sarcasm part.
Sarcasm.
Oh my God. And I developed sarcasm, I believe, at a really young age. I have much older siblings. They're like 10, 13 years older than me. I grew up watching The Simpsons. So, I was around a lot of like cheekiness, a lot of older humor. And I was just such a sarcastic little shit of a kid. And I'm still pretty sarcastic now. But there's times where I'm talking, like it happened yesterday. I was at a barbecue and I forgot what I said. I think someone was saying something about like feeling connected to their car. And I said, oh, what do you, tell me more about that. And I really meant to like, tell me more about that. But instead I said it like, oh, tell me more about that. And I didn't realize that until like the whole group was cracking up and they're like, dang, Korean, is that how you really feel? And I'm like, oh no, it was an actual question.
I really wanted to know.
I really wanted to know, but it went through the sarcasm, like what is that called? Like chasm or cliffside or whatever. And so I think that for some reason that's one of my favorite scenes, because I'm still wondering like, what is the purpose of sarcasm? And it's like so multi-purpose, right? It's like to create humor, to really like, I don't know, be a little shit. Like I don't know. I'm like, I think that was one of my favorites, because I'm like, oh, there is a time in our lives where that gets developed for some.
Yeah, but it also makes like, just now when you're like, what's the purpose of sarcasm? I think there are a lot of purposes, but the one that, like, I guess because we just talked about protection, that sarcasm can be a protection mechanism when you don't want to show like how excited you are about something. So you're like testing the waters. So if you just like introduce it sarcastically, then if people are like, oh, that's dumb, you're like, yeah, I agree. That's why I said it that way. But so it's like, it's a protection mechanism because it is vulnerable to be really excitable and put yourself out there in a way that people may or may not respond to.
Mm.
And so if you say it
Mhm.
sarcastically, it gives you a little bit of cover in case they won't. And then it's like, yeah, like when she
Very
doesn't like
sarcastic.
the boy, when she
Mhm.
doesn't like the boy bands anymore, and I'm like, no, Riley, you love them.
So it's kind of like it's testing the waters. It's
Yeah,
testing the waters, right? Because there's this level of protection that creates walls, right? And then there's a level of protection that creates like space, right? And I think we can all relate to how like sometimes like the distinction between a wall and a space can not really be as clear. And so yeah, I can see how like something like sarcasm creates like, depending on how it's delivered, the context and all of that, right? It can create either a wall or space to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you just said, the way you phrased it just reminds me of like boundaries, right? It could be a full wall to keep people out, or it could be a door that, like, okay, there are times when it's closed, there are times when it's open. It's like it can create that space also.
Mm.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Okay. I would say this might be a little deep, but I feel like my favorite scene was when she was actually in the penalty box and she had to focus on just breathing. And it was in that moment she chose joy, I believe, was in that moment. And it was, for one, it was aspirational for me as, a 32-year-old to know it's like, man, this 13-year-old in this movie, it just like figured out how to how to do something that I know I probably didn't even start like even focusing on until I was in my like late 20s, right? And it's just cool to know it's like she in that moment realized that she chose her emotions. And she got to choose how she wanted to experience what the experience was right then and there. And she slowed everything down in order to like, where am I, who am I, and got to like the core of herself, to be like, wait, I like when Joy's at the switchboard and I choose that right now. And that was such a cool scene for me because there that could have spiraled into much, much worse, right? And but but the fact that she was able to like slow her breathing down, and her friends even saw what was going on and was like, was coming over, and like it was almost like simultaneous, like they were experiencing what she was experiencing as well. And so when she was like, she saw them, like the first thing she got to like express exactly what it is right away. And I'm like, that's beautiful that her friends were even there and ready to support her in that moment, um, which means a lot for those friends, to say that they knew her so well that they're like, I know that wasn't you, that we've been experiencing. You are going through so many different things, and in that moment you needed us and we're there. And she was able to be vulnerable right away. And I'm like, that was such a cool thing. I'm like, they were 13 experiencing that. I'm like, I know at 13 I I don't think I would have been able to put names to emotions or be able to slow my breathing to be able to get to a point where I'm like,
Yeah.
I just stop freaking out. You're okay. You don't have to be anxious. Like there would have been so many things happening. Um, and you're away from your parents. Like there are so many things that she could have, like it could have went way, way another direction, but it didn't. And I think that speaks a lot to how she was raised, and also just her ability to be in touch with her own emotions. I thought that was really, really cool. And I'm like, that's fun. So I love that. And just more so on the funny note, when I don't know, were they in the deep recesses of her mind when they ran into all those, like, where were they when they ran into all those characters that were locked away? Um,
Yeah, I think they
was that
were
in her
way
brain?
in the back of the mind. Yeah.
Right, they're the back
Yeah.
of the mind. that part, I was dying. I was rolling so hard when they ran to all those characters, and the one is like, "We can't let this out yet." And I'm like, I'm hoping that secret comes out in the next one because I'm like, I wanted him to get out so bad.
Who
The
is
secret,
that?
I don't know. I'm like, it was like, they're not ready for me yet, and I'm like, what is the secret?
I know.
I'm like, oh, but all those characters are so funny to me. I just thought that was hilarious. It was such a cool touch to have. I'm like, we all have that. Just things get thrown back there. Like, do not remember this for the rest of your life, but I still want to know it's there whenever I need it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was like, what does this 13-year-old have in her? Like, I'm like, I
Wow.
feel kind of basic. I'm like, I don't know if
I'm like, what happened? I'm like, please let Out 3 be the secret.
For
Yeah.
anyone out there who likes Reddit thread rabbit holes like me, there's lots of good theories on Reddit about what her secret is.
Oh, okay. I know what Elijah's doing the rest of today.
I
Put this down.
highly
Let's end the live now.
I highly recommend that. So y'all get a snack and go look that up.
That's so fun. Elijah's hilarious hearing your reaction because I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna wait till part 3 to come out and you'll tell me. Yeah, I forgot that secret was there. But yeah, that was a really good part too, Elijah. Like when she was in that panic attack, like when all those thoughts from the back of her mind was flooding forward. And I think I noticed she like touched the bench. Like she used like a grounding tactic to like get back into her body. And then therefore that was part of the slowing down to make that choice. I didn't have that thought then, but you're right. It is incredible to see like a 13-year-old do it. But at the same time, like it's also not, because I feel like we know to do these things very naturally, that it might actually be harder in your like 20s, 30s, and 40s, and however long you end up living. It's like we lose touch with how to get back in touch with ourselves. And it is such a journey back sometimes into it. But I'm glad you pointed out, because that was a very subtle moment. I still can't pick, guys. I was trying to buy some time with all your responses. Like, what is my favorite moment? There were so many good one-liners. Like, I died when Joy was in the back of the brain. I'm not going to quote her exactly, but something along the lines of like, well, I guess when you grow up, you don't need Joy as much anymore. I was like, dang, that's a mic drop right there.
I got too real.
Yeah, that got very real. All the adults in the theater at that point were like looking at each other like, wait, I brought my kids to this movie, but why is this movie talking to me right now?
To be honest, that like right at the beginning when they came and like just destroyed everything and left, and I was like, that made so much sense. It was like under construction, but then they just left it and they never came back. And I'm like, oh my God, that is exactly what happens. They're like, all right, clear everything out. We got new emotions coming in, and then they just left, and they just left it a mess. And I'm like, oh my God, that makes sense. It was just one of those like, I don't know, one of those moments where they show visually what that feeling is, and they do it throughout the movie. But like that was an exact representation of what happens in your mind. Like puberty is, and nothing matters, all broken, and then you're just trying to manage the switchboard with a broken switchboard, and like you're just trying to figure it out.
So and it's up to us to like redo the whole room. Like we got to rebuild headquarters ourselves at this point.
It did make me realize that I was like, I don't know how much my headquarters got rebuilt. I was like, this scene is hitting so hard that I feel like that's the current state of my head right now.
But how's remodeling now? I'm like, I think
I swear our 20s and 30s, our whole 20s and 30s, and maybe even longer, is dedicated to fixing up that headquarter room, putting the pieces back together.
I think it's also like a favorite pastime of mine, and it's like to constantly be rebuilding, and but also again having to just be very clear in distinguishing it between rebuilding and examining and reassessing.
Mm.
Because dang, that can go into like the depths and depths of my days and my life, you know? Because there is some sort of like there's excitement and fun in re-identifying with different parts of my emotions, or you know, oh my God, I remember the first time I realized, oh, emotions are just information. Like, I remember having that moment in my 20s. I was like, "Oh my God, you guys, what? Let's, like, tear down all the walls, let's rebuild it, let's create, like, a plaza. You wanna slip and slide? We can have a slip and slide, sure, let's do all of
Yeah.
this." Like, that was, like, a defining moment in my remodeling phase where I'm like,
Mm.
"Wow, there's so much, like, freedom and realizing
Yeah.
like, oh, my emotions are just information.
Yeah.
They are just information. They are not who I am. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Mm,
okay,
Oh,
okay.
well put. Well
that's
put.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, I just feel like you just coached me a little bit. I like needed that reminder.
I got
I feel like we
you.
need that reminder all the time.
Yes.
Totally. Like that's similar to the first time someone told me you're not your thoughts, like you're
Mhm.
separate from your thoughts. I was just like, I don't even know how to conceptualize what that means.
hmm It's hard to grasp that, especially as like we're oh, spoiler alert to for folks on who dialed in. We're all deep feelers, the four of us. I think it's safe to say we're all deep feelers. So actually, I don't know how it was for you when you heard that. Like, but when I heard the emotions are just information, I got excited. But before I got excited, I got a little defensive. I was like, wait, hold on. What do you mean my emotions are just information? I was like, I want to identify so badly with my emotions. Like,
Mm.
Mm.
and and then I had to kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
the remodeling is happening right now. There's not much I can do. Let's just like let Joy get in her Delulu phase and be like, yeah, we could put, you know, we could put everything in here, all these different possibilities. But I think that was a bit hard for me, as much as
Yeah.
I was talking about it in an excited way. And like, it was hard to detach myself from that as a deep
Yeah.
feeler.
I think that's so fair to name, like, especially as folks who are big feelings. Like, I didn't call myself or embrace the fact that I had big feelings, even though I cried at the drop of a hat and everything since I was like 2 years old. I didn't see myself that way. And I think part of it's like the emotions have gotten so big and so out of control that, like, sometimes I notice when things get that big and I've lived with it for that long, I develop this like prideful attachment to it. It's like I've survived this. I've lived my life for this long with this thing, and now the only way to actually keep going is to feel a sense of pride about this
Mm,
as well. And I think that you just reminded me, Kareen, of like that was the same feeling I had too. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? They're just information? But
mm,
recognizing that like pride in this moment doesn't actually serve me, doesn't actually get me to see the information that the rest of my emotions are trying to tell me as well.
mm.
Mm. Mm-mm.
Mm.
I think it's important too to to acknowledge even for those that maybe are like watching and they're like, well, I don't like express a lot of emotion or I don't like cry a lot. It's like that doesn't mean you're not a big feeler as
Yeah,
well. And
that's fair.
because like I feel like I notice like I don't tend to shed a lot of tears, but I would still acknowledge myself as someone who's like very much in his feels because like anything that will come up like in a conversation, especially if they're close to me, I'm gonna like have an initial feeling and it's gonna be kind of strong. And it may even show up in my face, or maybe if it doesn't, I might like like withdraw and go somewhere else and like feel it. Just like like you're just kind of feeling it and you're like then all the thoughts and the scenarios come up like why do they do that? Why do they think that? And like now what do they think of me? And all these different things. And it's important to say that like I think all of us feel big in different ways, and especially when certain things
Yeah.
kind of like trigger us or certain emotions that we're experiencing, like they hit us even harder when we go through them. And to acknowledge
Mm.
that for what it is, to say like, cool, like I acknowledge that I feel a lot when this thing happens, and then to also say, okay, because I do, what then do I do with that information? Kind of like Kareen was mentioning, what can I do? because also like Karine was mentioning, like the defensiveness piece of it, I think comes from protecting what we know and not being open to what we don't. And and I think a lot of that comes from us being more comfortable being in an emotion, regardless of how it's making us feel, because we know what it is, and we'll stay there and we'll be defensive if someone says like, "Hey, have you thought differently?" It's like, well, don't tell me how to think or don't tell me how to feel, right? And we get defensive even if it's not serving us because we know it. We know how we get through it. And yeah, I just wanted to make that caveat for those that maybe think I'm not always telling people off, or I'm not always crying, or I'm not always like X. It like doesn't mean you're not feeling big in the moment, because everyone has their things that they kind of really attach to and that makes them experience something. But yeah, just wanted to mention that.
I appreciate that distinction. I really do. Yeah.
That makes me think of, I don't know if it's the opposite or I don't know where it fits, but it did make me think of something. It's the, like, I think for me, the defensiveness came from, as soon as I learned I had ADHD, a big part of it is emotional dysregulation, because you don't have, like, the part of your brain that regulates emotion doesn't do it as well. And so essentially we're dysregulated a lot of the time. And so you feel feelings that you feel like you can't control. And so when somebody was like, oh, emotions are just information, it almost makes it seem like you then should be able to control them, because if it's just information, then why can't you turn it off and on or whatever. And I was just like, that's, so for me, that's where the defensiveness comes from anytime someone talks about it in that way, where it's just like, oh, but you're just like missing a whole swath of people that don't always have full control over how it manifests or what it does to your body and your mind. And it's so interesting how we all heard that through our own filter of experience, right?
Yeah.
It's just a statement, but I feel like it triggered all of us in different ways.
Yeah.
And that's where like the coach in me is like, oh, cool, let's dig into that and see where all the roots of that are connecting to. But yeah, I think it's interesting how we all accept, suppress, identify with emotion. And it's the thing that every human has, but we all do such different things with it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about these movies, is I do think it gives a really simple, basic way to talk about things that we don't really talk about that openly.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually want to invite the folks who are watching us too. Like, now you're making me think, actually. It's like, wow, if in the room with four of us and we talk pretty often, our values are pretty aligned generally. And for that to activate all of us so differently through our personal experiences, it just makes me wonder, like, what other folks are feeling when they hear the phrase, like, emotions are just information. Like, what is that bringing up for you? And if you want to share that in the comments, like, we'd love to hear it. We'd love to see more of that as well. Yeah.
I have a. Go ahead.
I'm going to take us on a whole tangent,
so was
possibly.
I.
So go first.
Well, mine's also a tangent. So you go first.
Well, my brain was kind of going to, like, I mean, Riley was 13 in the movie, right? And they don't show too much of her parenting. And I think I'm not going to open up the can of worms of like nature versus nurture kind of thing, but I do recognize that, like, in my own experience, like growing up as first gen, I didn't have a lot of people around me who tapped into their emotions. So like Elijah, you were saying that, like, you don't have to be a big crier to be a big feeler. It started making me think, like, well, if we all have emotions, aren't we all big feelers then? It's just a matter of how connected we are to those emotions. And it just reminded me that as someone who grew up in an immigrant household, like, the standard is don't cry. Like, if you're sad, don't cry. Don't show you're upset. Don't show. And there's certain emotions that they especially suppress to, like, keep the balance and keep the peace in the room. And also, as someone who is female, like I also experience like a certain level of suppression of like, don't be sad, don't be angry, because all those are like just dramatic emotions for me as well. But I don't know, my brain just went back to one of the phrases that it passed by so quickly, but I remember my brain was lingering on it in the movie when Joy was like leaving headquarters in Inside Out 2, and she wanted Sadness to come with her, and Sadness was like, really? And she goes, yeah, where I go, you go. And it's just like the companionship and the between the emotions as well. I'm like, it's so hard. I'm just trying to recognize how hard that can be. Like if you grew up in an environment where there were no models of how to express that, and you're learning that for the first time yourself. And for me, I didn't learn until I was twice the age of Riley. And at first, it does feel like we're starting with basics again. We're starting with the joy, the anger, the sadness, and they all have their separate lanes, but then recognizing that they all actually walk together. And then God knows what Inside Out 3 is going to introduce us in terms of feelings, right? Like as you get older, more nuance comes in. There's an app called How We Feel, which is like a diagram of like, I didn't actually count, but it feels like 50 to 100 emotions on there. And I'm just like, damn, I gotta learn all of these now as an adult. Like they're all at my switchboard. So just recognizing like it is a tough journey to get to that emotional intelligence, or even just being a feeler. Like if we put it simply, how do we just feel the feelings that we all have as humans?
Wow.
So that was my tangent. That's true.
I love that.
Yeah. I'm gonna hop on that tangent. Everything you said, yes. And I won't open the box up as well about nurture versus nature, because that could be another hour. But what was coming to mind was there's this level of safety that has to happen in order to connect with our emotions and to express them. I also grew up in a household where you shouldn't cry. And there was just so much like it felt like this, like the emotions were like this, like it was just on the brink of whatever. And my family and I, we've grown a lot together in the last however long we've been here on this earth together. And it's really beautiful to see how we've all taken our part in creating a safe environment. And I wasn't able to do that until I left. I went away for college. I left home for a really long time, and I was kind of like on the outskirts of like these like safe environments, and also kind of partaking in safe environments. And I remember, God, it's just like, sorry, nostalgia is now on the dashboard. Nostalgia is now on the dashboard.
I was like, I saw her walk right in.
She walked in. She got her tea. She was like, ooh. I had like a really loving is interesting, but I had a really nurturing college experience. Like I remember I was working, I did work study at this office called the Multicultural Student Service Center. And I met like some of my closest friends there, and we're from very different walks of life. And most of us, if not all of us, were from like historically marginalized backgrounds. And we were not only running the office, but we were also supported by the deans of the office and facilitating conversations where we shared more about our lived experiences, and we shared more about our dreams, our aspirations, and our challenges. And I don't have a specific moment in that time period, but I just remember being like, wow, this is like everyone's talking about their stuff, like, and this is a safe space. And I think that was like the beginning of my remodel, of one of my remodels, where I'm like, okay, like this safety is important for me in order to be in touch with my emotions and to express them outwardly. And dot dot dot. I'm just rambling now, but yeah, that was just something that I thought that was really, yeah.
We do need that safety.
Yeah, and it makes me think of also like building that safety within yourself, because like we're all told from such a young age that you shouldn't cry, you shouldn't show your emotions or whatever. And it's like back to the thing where like Riley knew to grip onto the bench, like right, or she knew that that was a way. It's like kids know how to regulate their body. A temper tantrum is self-regulation, but we see it as this thing that's not socially acceptable. It's like you shouldn't act that way
Disruption.
and whatever.
Yeah.
And we teach children out of it so early, right? Like before you can even talk or anything. And I think about it now and I'm like, oh, kids know how to regulate so well. Like they'll just lay on the ground, they'll cry, they'll stomp their feet. These are all very good to regulate your body. And we snuff it out so early.
Mm.
And yeah, there's my ... where I forgot where I was going with it, but it did make it
This
did make
movie.
This
oh right.
movie,
You have to feel safe enough within yourself
Yeah.
to like show emotions.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you guys, like I just remember for so long, even now, like I've just always been told that I have too many feelings, like just too much. And
Mhm.
so there's a lot of so I feel a lot of shame when I'm having the feelings. And then if I happen to need to show them to somebody else, then there's just like even more shame around that. And yeah, and I'm just like, oh, it like starts when you're a kid and someone says don't cry or like you cry too much or just all the things.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's something across the board people tell kids, regardless of how you identify, how you grow up to identify, is just don't cry,
Yeah, don't cry.
which is shorthand for don't feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even when they're trying to be
Right.
helpful, they're like, oh, don't cry. And I'm like, no, let it cry.
Mhm.
Elijah
Yeah.
almost just made me cry earlier with his deep thought.
I know. I was like, I feel like I'm watching the movie all over again. We got napkins, people.
We got
Right there with you, girl. Oh, I
man.
tell my 10 or not tell, I encourage my now 10-year-old niece, like when like I'm like, let it out. And I had the pleasure to live back home during the pandemic. I was so grateful I was able to do that and go back home. And in that time period, I was with my niece. She was at the time 6, I don't know, young. And I remember I think my family caught on to the fact that like, oh, Korean is all about the emotions. Like, so the minute my niece would like start to feel these things, they'd go to auntie, go to auntie. And so auntie would be there and I'm like, girl, yes, let it out. And she would try to hold it tight. And I was like, let it out. It's just you and me. It's you and me. Let's do it. Or we'll go to the park. And I remember like, I love that we keep talking about that scene with the bench and her touching the bench. Like that was a really powerful scene. And thank you for bringing that up, Elijah, initially, because it's reminding me of times when I was with my niece and helping her through her emotions. And also she didn't know she was also helping me through my own emotions. And we would go to the park and we would just like take off our shoes and touch the grass. Our feet would just touch the grass. Or if we couldn't make it to the park, we would just go outside and look up at the sky, or we would just like touch a leaf. There's a lot of succulents in our front yard. We live in San Diego, so we have a lot of the succulents, and we would just touch a little bit of a succulent, and that just like kind of helped us get to a baseline that was manageable. And I'm going to stop talking because I'm getting emotional thinking about my niece. I love her so much.
All right. To kind of, it's something similar. I just got back from a rugby coaching trip just this past weekend. And, it's so funny at the end of each, this is what I'll say. I hardly cry, but it's always at the end of those I do. And I haven't figured out what about ending like a rugby experience makes me like tear up. Because I don't think about it until I have to say goodbye to them. And even though this experience was literally only like 5 days, we met them on Tuesday. I left them on Saturday, and yet there was still like almost like the attachment of like, oh snap, I don't get to coach you anymore. and
Mm.
you have six games. You have the hottest days that you've ever experienced. You're going through hell together, and you're just trying to help these U16s have a fun time, learn the sport, and like just enjoy being with each other. And it's funny because in rugby, I've really only coached like high school girls. Like that's it. I've really only grown up in the women's side of rugby completely, and because my wife has been playing forever, and and I enjoy it because of just the way I get to coach them is very much how I get to coach clients, and it's very much asking questions. It's very much, hey, what do you want to do? It's very much autonomy, and I love that because they're not looking for me to be like do everything. They're like, give me the tools, give me the questions, and like let me go. And I'm like, cool, that's what I want to do. And so it's fun on that side because I don't have to scream and yell. In fact, it doesn't feel comfortable, and I don't like doing it. Anyway, so I'm glad it doesn't suit the personality either. But at the end of that, during one of the games, our captain come over, and they had mentioned, it's like, hey, I'm so sorry for how I was on the field. And whenever I hear apologies in any sort in sport, I'm like, I know they're not needed, because there's no need to be sorry about a play. There's no need to be sorry about how you're feeling, anything. I'm like, the only reason to be sorry is if you intentionally tried to harm your teammate. Did you do that? No. Then don't be sorry. Right? Everything happens. Mistakes happen. And she said like, I'm sorry for like messing up. And it was just like this sense of like, I let you down, I let my team down. And they all feel this pressure. And I feel, and it makes me feel like, even like, I don't like to use the word emotional because like that's, I don't know. It makes me feel like sad when I hear that come out, when I hear them say that, because there's so much pressure on them to be something for someone. And so to the point where they have to apologize for making a mistake in a game that they are naturally going to make anyway. It's sports. You always do it. So it was just like, she was like, I'm sorry for, it was like, she was almost sorry for like crying and being sad. Like it was really tough as the coach to feel that. Cause I'm like, if you're telling me this, I know you've told every other coach this. I know you've told your teammates this, and which means that you've been apologetic for so long in your life for simply experiencing emotion. And it's one of those things to where, for a lot, I've noticed, and this is just generalizing, but it's not true for everyone. But a lot of times on like the women's side of the sports, it's like an apology for being expressive. And for the men's, it's like, don't even think about being expressive. Otherwise, you won't
there's
play.
no
Like,
permission there.
there's no permit. So it's like at extremes on both ends, unfortunately. Right. And there's no room for like feeling what I'm feeling and saying, but I got it next time. Feeling what I'm feeling and say, hey guys, I know I messed up, but I got you. Like it's really hard to release it in that sport. And so when you were describing just like expressing yourself, having the tantrum, getting it out, or going and touching grass or touching something and trying to like get back to who you are as like your most optimal self. I just loved how Inside Out was like, use the sports as a way to say like, come back to yourself, because I could fully identify that with coaching a lot of these girls. They had they processed this same exact way, and they were trying to figure it out. I'm like, please do not, for everything that is good, apologize for having a feeling. Because that feeling is necessary. And I said, have your feelings. Absolutely. And just know that it's like, and your teammates need you to be at your best. So flush it. Once you feel it, flush the thing, and we keep going. And it's like, but don't not feel it. And I think the whole moral of the story is like, I think a lot of times, especially, I should say, unfortunately, especially women have to like feel like they have to be a protective source for someone, just because that's oftentimes what's been like, that's what many women have been told to be. And it's like, you have to be inside. You can't express. You have to console. And that, unfortunately, it starts at such a young age. And these are just teens, right? And they're all feeling this sense of like, I can't be like this because I'm letting someone down. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, like it makes me, it's to say that it's like, feel everything, and to know that it's like the feeling is never wrong. Like, and the expression is never wrong. It's just like, do you know what you want to do with it? And that's
Yeah.
all I ever care about as a coach. And that's all I think we care about as coaches in general. It's like, do you just know what you want to do with it? And well, we can help sort that if you want to help regulate that.
Yeah.
But it's like the feeling itself is never a wrong thing or bad
Yeah.
thing or an
It's
expressive thing.
neutral. Like emotions are neutral. They're,
It's
as
just,
Corinne said,
yeah,
they're just information. And I love that you
yeah,
put it so pointedly. It's like, yeah, in coaching, what we love doing is, how do you then find your choice? How do you find
yes,
your autonomy? How do you find your authenticity? We all call it different things, but it's the same purpose of like, how do we then use this information to help us be the person and be intentional about who we want to become? And my brain keeps going back to the thing you just said, Elijah, which is, don't apologize for what's natural, right? And whether that's emotion, whether that's what you want, whether everything else, like that's going to stick with me for a bit.
Yeah, and it just makes me think of how much time we spend avoiding our emotions, and how many things we have to fix later because they then just like explode because we've suppressed them for so long. And it just, and also the, Elijah, what you were saying about how like women are expected to console, and just how, a lot of us are told not to feel things or whatever. I think we also suppress our emotions because other people don't know what to do with them. So then you're like, it's not even worth me having to worry about you worrying about me. Right?
My
Like
brain exploded.
I know that you don't know how to hold space for my emotions right now, and that I'm going to have to take care of you when I need you to take care of me. So I'm just not going to do this at all. And I think a lot of us learn that pretty early on, because there's a lot of, like if you release something and the other person makes it about themselves or just gets defensive or whatever, right? Like I think we all learn that pretty young, that being vulnerable can mean having to take care of somebody else when you need to be taken care of. And yeah, so everything you just said, Elisha, plus a million to that, and then also just I feel like we've all internalized that in so many different ways, and I'm sure we all see that in our clients who are constantly apologizing, or who are in workplaces that are still not safe to show like any sort of emotion, right? It's like, oh, emotions are not my problem at work. That's for your therapist, or that's for at home. And it's like, cool. So you don't want me to be a human being at work. Like you just want me to show up as a robot or something. And it's like, how many of us have clients who have bosses that are so emotionally dysregulated that their whole job is to manage their boss's feelings?
Okay, my sarcasm is screaming. It's like, if you only want half of my ass to show up, you only need to get half of my work.
Oh.
Word. We all kind of like shifted in our seats too. We're like,
yeah,
sorry,
that's
Ashley, what were you saying?
I say, like, if my job is going to be to manage your feelings, then I'm going to have a higher rate than what you're paying me.
There's a premium.
That's the other one.
You paid me to do a job, and now all of a sudden I am managing your feelings. And a lot of mid-level managers are managing their boss's feelings to make sure they don't get to their employees, right? Like they're the liaison to either absorb or deflect or whatever. And I'm just like, if we all just learned some regulation, or just allowed emotions to be what they are, which, as Corinne said, is information, then, I feel like we would all be so much more present. And I think a lot of us, as coaches, we just I think the four of us would be out of a job, which honestly I'm okay with. But
Me too.
I'm cool with that.
If that's the world we're walking towards, I will be happy to give up.
yeah.
Elijah, you said something that, well, you said a lot of things that we enjoyed hearing, but there's something about like, I love how you described sports and like in movement and how that brings us back, how that brings a lot of people back to themselves. It doesn't even have to be a sport; it can just be like something physical. And I have found that was like even watching the movie, I was I was feeling so many things, especially when anxiety was coming up, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, like that's. And I know, there's so much stuff happening, and I just noticed myself like having to like just kind of like touch my hands, just like gently touch my hands or do this thing that we learned in like positive intelligence, just like rubbing my two fingers together, little micro movements like that, like really helped me not only through that watching Inside Out too, which was a great movie, but also dysregulating it as well. But it just kind of, it reminds me to come back to myself. And that's something that I have really like encouraged my clients, and both ways too. Like I encourage them and I'll notice them like kind of leaning in that direction. Like even like something as simple as like, hey, I haven't done dance in so long, like a client sharing with me that, and her being like, I just had a little dance party. I had a little dance party before this coaching session, and it helped me come back to myself. And so there's something really powerful because emotions like are all of our languages here on earth are like so limited in terms of how we can express emotions. We're trying to find words from our brain to express emotions. And so there's only so many words to express emotions. And so that's where I think like, somatic body movement exercises are so important, and just like connecting with ourselves and maybe making more space for like the mystique of other parts of our emotions.
Yeah. Or I think you just described the need for art. Right? Like art is the way we express things that we can't express through words.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the crayon, sometimes it's with our body. They both count.
Yeah. Our crayons could be a body.
I know, I'm just trying to draw.
I feel like that has to be where we end our
Oh my god, the time! Yes. As you all can see, we can go on and on and on about this. But we just wanted to give everyone a treat, give us a treat as well, of just like this is a movie we all enjoyed watching. Inside Out 2, Inside Out 1, if you haven't seen as well. And it was something we were all naturally doing outside of this episode also, just like, oh my God, did you see that? What was that scene? What was going on? And we just wanted to open that up and share with folks. Also a little window into how we think about this and how it also very much represents the different parts of how we all coach and how we bring emotions into our work. So thank you, everyone, for sitting with us for the last hour and just joining. And if you want to hear part 2, because honestly, we can probably go for part 2 on this, let us know in the comments. We're more than happy to reconvene and come back, because we haven't even touched on the islands, people. Like, that's a whole other thing.
Or like the whole sense of self and how her memories make her have beliefs.
Yep.
And when anxiety was so shocked that like the belief that came out was I'm not enough. I'm just gonna pause there.
Oh no!
That might be a decision that whether you guys want it or not, we're gonna do.
We're gonna comments or not, whatever. We're coming back.
But this is a community that we hope that like if Inside Out 2 brought out the joyful geek in you, like please come in the space, be with us, enjoy it, and also like we'll leave in the comments because we don't want to take up too much more of folks' time. How to get in touch with all of us if they just want to continue to geek out more, or just have some caring support and tender support in terms of looking at your life and where you're at right now too. Well, thank you, Kareen, Elijah, and Ashmi for joining me today. And we'll hang tight for part 2.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.